Let's get ready to rumble! Today, we're going to talk about Big George Foreman, boxer, entrepreneur extraordinaire. A lot of ways you could describe Big George. And you've seen in previous talks, I've talked about the history of the World Heavyweight Boxing Championship and the various characters, very unique characters in the sport, going back to the days of Fighting Marine there, Gene Tunney down to Jack Dempsey. But today we're going to concentrate on someone who's alive and with us. After we talked about the greatest last year, Muhammad Ali, who plays a big part in George's life, we're going to talk today about Mr. Nice Guy that you see on the television all the time now. The amiable, affable, avuncular George Foreman, as you all see there. Whether on his grill, what's he selling now in Bento? Hey George! Everyone knows George Foreman. How many of you had his grill, by the way? All the guys. When you're single guys, everyone had a George Foreman grill. I've lived off that damn thing. But there's another side to George, and a lot of people forget. A lot of people might know, but he was a great boxer, and he wasn't always this amiable, affable character. Completely the opposite. I'm going to show you where he got his fame from when he fought Joe Frazier for the World Heavyweight Championship, when he won it. Let me show you a few little techniques. Here's the Julio Cesar Chavez from Mexico. What you're going to notice with George's fighting, guys, his technique, let's get out of the shadow here, Giuliani. Unlike most boxers, when they block, it's usually close to the body. They take the momentum off, or they use a lot of ducking and weaving. George would block out from his hands, and he would also push. And that was because he was so big and strong. So the guys would rush into him and he'd just push off. And he'd just be so big and strong. He'd hit combinations of three. Always be usually a big left hook at the end. Maybe a combination of four, but people rarely got to the fourth punch. Right? Usually the first two would be enough for George to get rid of him. Let me just show you on George here. This is him winning the World Heavyweight Championship from Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier had just beaten Muhammad Ali and was considered pretty much unbeatable.
Foreman in complete charge. Up to now. Frazier.
Complaining about
Foreman is
pushing.
being won. Frazier's being battered and Foreman's the runner. Joe's about to go down and out. Foreman's desperately trying to get to his feet. He's on his feet. He's taking a mandatory dismount. 45 seconds to go in the round. Foreman down 4 times. After that, 5 times now. Foreman at him again. It's hard to see how Frazier can last.
You see the slow motion here?
There's the last knockdown.
How he draws up his whole body.
Well staggered. Turn to the left. Stag. Now turn to the right. That winging right hand did it. It was just a question of time anyway. Foreman was in complete charge of the fight after a minute and a half of the first round.
What round was this? Second round. Knocked him
Yeah,
out 6 times in 2 rounds.
battering. He really got hit tonight. Look at those punches.
Joe Frazier had never been off his feet.
Everything's on the book.
Okay, so there you have it. There's George. A little bit different from the guy selling grills that you see out there now. Big George Foreman. What we're going to talk about today, guys, is his personal history, his background, his boxing career, major opponents, his style, and his conditioning methods, which were very, very untraditional, let's just say, especially in the second part of his career. What two factors motivated him, and the major turning points in his life that turned him from Mr. Tough Guy, surly and aggressive. He was nothing like he is today. He was a one mean guy, and that's his persona. He was just a tough guy. Talk about his background soon. But what turned this guy from that tough, surly, aggressive guy into the guy we know today? No, it wasn't age. There was some other things. It does tend to stop us a little bit, but not that much. So, Mr. Tough Guy, surly and aggressive again. First of all, he's referred to as Big George Foreman for a reason. Not just his personality. His dimensions are there. Height of 6'4" inches. You may see some other places they say 6'3", 6'3.5". I've seen him standing next to Ali and so forth. I'd say he's closer to 6'4" than 6'3". Now the thing that was unique about George back in the 70s, we're talking the mid-70s, that he was about 220, 225 pounds of rock hard steel muscle. Nothing like he is today. About 5 to 8% body fat, if that. Just rock hard steel muscle. And that was very unusual in the day. You didn't usually find guys that big, that strong, who could box with that coordinate. It was very unusual, and he was very, very aggressive. So, just a little bit about his background before his big turning point. He had a number of turning points in his life. He was born on January 9th, 1949 in Marshall, Texas. Fifth out of 7 children. Okay, the only, this is, I think, the oldest boy, had a younger brother later on. But he says his youth, all he can remember is anger and hunger. He was always hungry, he was always angry. Like a lot of families at those times, his father was absent a lot of the time, and if he was there, he was given to violence and alcoholism. So he knew anger at an early age. And he says that even at 3 or 4 years of age, he didn't take it from anybody. He was an unusually big kid. So he had anger and hunger as his motivating forces. Now, as he got older, he's bigger than all the other kids in his neighbourhood. His family subsequently, by the way, moved to Houston, the 5th Ward in Houston. I don't know Texas very well. I know San Antonio and Dallas, not the Dallas Cowboys. But I don't know Houston, but apparently that's a pretty unprivileged area. Okay, so he's moved to that area with his family. His mother's working 2, 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. George is a big kid, as often happens. Gets a lot of acolytes. Gets a lot of people behind him. If there's any trouble, Big George is pushed to the front. If there's anyone to be beaten up, who do you think they're going to call? And he says that at his early age, his mother impressed on him, you know, you're not living in the great times, but we're not a family of thieves, right? You better be honourable. Well, that seemed to get forgotten when you're with all your friends. And he says that, you know, robbing people, he didn't even equate that with being a thief. That was just what they did. They saw someone with what they wanted, they robbed the guy. Right up until his early teens. And it's at about 12, 13 years of age, he's 6'2" and about 200, 210 pounds. So he's a huge guy. But a big turning point comes one night. It's got a little bit of humour to it. George always has a way now of infusing humour into his stories. But one night he's out with his buddies and they rob a guy. They hear the police sirens wailing. So they all run off. George runs underneath his house. Doesn't rise underneath the house. Here's all the police sirens. He's watched too many movies. He said he watched too many movies. He envisioned bloodhounds coming and looking for him. And in the movies, what do they do to get rid of the trap? They jump in the water. I don't know if that works, but that's what they do in all the movies. It's throw off the trap. So he says, what am I going to do? He sees underneath the house, there's the sewer pipes and all the effluent flowing from it. He goes and rolls himself in it. He says, that's going to keep the traffic dogs away. So eventually, he waits under there for about 2 hours. Sirens all go away. Police finds his way back up into his house. Depends when George tells you the story. It's either his aunt or his sister is there. He says, listen, I'm going to jump in the shower, get myself cleaned up and go to bed. Just don't tell anyone, I've been sleeping all night, all right? And his sister or his aunt said, what does it matter for you, really, mate? He said, what do you mean? He said, you're never going to be anything anyway. You're nothing. You're always going to be nothing. You're just a thief. You're absolutely no good. George was surprised. He said, I'm a thief. He didn't equate robbing people with being a thief. But he thought, wow, is this what my life is going to be? So what can I do? As luck would have it, he's watching TV. Anyone recognise the guy there? Lyndon Baines Johnson?
Yeah,
Yes.
president.
I hope you recognise the guy. You recognise the other guy? Anyway, so he sees an advertisement. He sees an advertisement for the job corps, a program that Lyndon Johnson initiated, apparently. Promises people from underprivileged backgrounds the opportunity to go and learn, to read and write, be given sporting opportunities and so forth. So he becomes involved in the job corps. He says, boxing's going to be for me, I'm a big tough guy. He promptly gets put on his pants the first round he's in there by an experienced boxer. Well, maybe boxing's not for me. He thinks, maybe I shouldn't do this. Fortunately, there was a coach there who saw some potential, much as the same has happened with Muhammad Ali. He said, no, come and channel that aggression and take up some boxing. And he did. At 17 years of age, he was in the 1968 Olympics. It took him 1 year to be in the Olympics. At the heavyweight division. He was fighting for the gold medal against the Russian champion there at 18 years of age. Russian champion's about 30. But George is just too big, too strong. The guys just don't know how to handle that sort of aggression, especially in amateur ranks. So he wins the gold medal. Something else happened during the 68 Olympics, or a lot happened in the 68 Olympics. Does anyone remember this? Okay, that was an iconic moment in sport. We have Tommy Smith and John Carlos, and the other chap there who's forgotten is Peter Norman from Australia. They had a big protest after the 200 metres final. When they received their gold and bronze medals, they raised their hands up with a black glove as a black power salute, as a protest to the way black people were being treated in America. It was seen as a very, very serious offence, and these two fellas were immediately banned from the Olympic Village and were sent home in so-called disgrace at that point. So, interestingly enough, the next day, George was fighting for the gold medal, and everyone was waiting for a thing. Is George going to do the same thing? Is he going to do this big black power salute as well? Depends which side you're listening to George. He said he just saw a flag in the audience. I think he might have had it pre-planned. But he got the little flag and went around to each corner of the ring, bowed, and waved the American flag. Because he said America gave him the opportunity. And he wanted to give the other side of that. So a very interesting event for a kid of 18. So he's not scared of controversy or of speaking his mind. So, he's the 1968 gold medalist, but as he says, when he gets back home, you can't eat a gold medal. He's still hungry, he's still angry. What am I going to do? He's going to take up professional boxing. Now, professional boxing, as I always preface in my presentations, has two aspects to it. Sweet science, where it's the noble art of self-defense. It's courage, dexterity, skill, respect for your opponent. But oftentimes, especially in professional boxing, as Jimmy Cannon said, a famous 1950s sports writer, calls it the red light district of sports. Attracts a lot of nefarious characters, and sometimes not the nicest people. Money's involved in it. You can get caught up in all of those trappings. Suffice to say, George went in that camp. He followed the red light district. His role model, if you will, was the infamous Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston was another guy born in unfortunate circumstances. 22nd child, a sharecropper, had 23 siblings. So he's the 22nd out of 23. No one knew how old he was. They didn't have any birth records. He went and lived in Detroit. Because of his size and surly demeanour, he got involved with the wrong crowd as well. Ended up virtually part of the mob, if you will. Ended up in jail, assaulting police. In jail, he learned how to box. So he became heavyweight champion. And as I always say, you have to notice something about him there, about his size. Not so much his height and his weight. Them hands, man. Size 17 hands. He was a huge, big, tough guy. A very surly demeanour. George saw him as his role model. Here's a rare photograph of George actually sparring with Sonny Liston. You can see there, look at the size of George's feet, his hands. He's a big man. He's bigger than Sonny Liston. Bigger and much more muscular. So, George has got Sonny Liston as his role model. He starts his professional career fighting what they term in boxing as tomato cans. He's a knockover. Okay? But they progressively got harder, his competition. But no one really good to get him to the big top contender until he fought, and he fought 32 wins for 29 KOs, by the way. He's got the highest percentage KO history in the history of the heavyweight championship. He fought a fellow by the name of George Trevallow out of Canada. George Trevallow fought Muhammad Ali, fought Floyd Patterson, fought Joe Frazier. He lost to all of them, but he was considered a very good measuring stick. He was one of the top contenders. George destroys him in 3 rounds. Right? So now he's the #1 contender. So, at this point, George is the #1 contender. I just want to turn to a little bit about what motivates Big George, because we saw him already. We saw him win the championship off Frazier. What motivates him? I guess hunger is what I've already said. He had anger, he had hunger. Just, in those sort of circumstances, trying to get food on the table. But the second one was fear. Now that's surprising. Why would George be scared of anybody after what he's done to all these guys? 32 wins, 0 losses, 29 KOs. He's scared. He's going to fight Joe Frazier. He's beaten Joe Frazier. Fear. Why is he scared? Well, as he says often, he was taught by Sonny Liston to look guys in the eye, even their death's there, so that they look back, and if he saw them look away, he sensed weakness. It was just the way to be a big tough guy. But as he says now, he's glad Joe Frazier didn't look away, because if he saw his knees, they were shaking. Because he realised at the stage, you're fighting heavyweight boxers here. They can still hurt you. So he wants to be out of there as soon as he can. He wants to get rid of these guys. He doesn't want to stand around for 10 rounds. He wants to get rid of them in 1 or 2. So folks, if you ever hear of anybody, one of those pub experts, saying, oh, I'd get in the ring with Tyson for $1 million, yeah, you'll need that for your hospital bills, and I'd say your funeral bills too. Because these guys can actually break a neck or do anything to you. Don't listen to that. So he's got fear as his motivation. So you see, he destroys Joe Frazier, as we saw before. A fellow by the name of Ken Norton comes along. Ken Norton is the fighting Marine. He's a big guy too, big and muscular as well, not quite as big as George. And he'd just broken Muhammad Ali's jaw in a fight. They fought again, and he lost a split decision. But Ken Norton is the #1 contender. Previous to this, George had fought another tomato can named Jose Román, who he beat in 1 minute, so got rid of him. But everyone was saying, well, Ken Norton's going to give him a good fight. Ken's going to really challenge George. Well, maybe not so much. Okay? Second round, he gets grabbed. So who's George going to fight now? He's beaten Ken Norton, he's beaten Joe Frazier. There's no one else around. Well, there is someone else around. A fellow by the name of Muhammad Ali, who I described previously, had to give up his title for 3 years because of his issues with the American government about not accepting conscription. He's made a comeback, subsequently lost to Joe Frazier, lost to Ken Norton, but he's adamant he wants to fight George Foreman. In typical Muhammad Ali style, he says, George Foreman's the moment which too much skill and too much power. I'm too good looking. That's Muhammad Ali talking on me, by the way. So he says, oh, I'm going to beat you. There's no problem with that. Remember this, guys. Ali has fought a total of 50 rounds with both Frazier and Norton. Split one each between both of them. 50 rounds, hardest rounds of his career so far. He's 32 years of age. George Foreman's beaten those two guys in 4 rounds, both out. Who do you think's going to win? Who do you think the general public thinks is going to win? It's all weighted for Ali. In fact, for Foreman. In fact, Foreman's trainers actually pleaded with Ali. They said, don't destroy your legacy. George is going to kill you. He might do some serious damage to you. You're 10 years older than you were before. George is at his peak. You're in big trouble. Interestingly enough, at this point, George always says, this is the one time he didn't have any fear. He's going to beat Muhammad Ali. He's got so confident, so cocky of himself. Muhammad Ali's not going to stand a chance. So, the stage is set for the rumble in the jungle. In Shasha Zaire, Tuesday, October 29th, over 15 rounds. This was an iconic fight. So, Ali versus Foreman. Now, look at their size there. You can see they've got both at 6'3". But as I said, I still think George is a little taller at about 6'4". Ali's got a little more reach, which will be telling. And George is a bigger guy, but not that much bigger. Muhammad Ali's a big guy. People forget that. He's just constructed in a different way to Foreman. Maybe not as big and muscular. He's got a lot of strength in the legs, and just a big, powerful guy as well. So, we get ready for the fight. There's 2 distinctive fighting styles between these two guys. And it's emphasised when you see them both work on the heavy bag here. First, Ali. Speed. Footwork. Lots of different styles of punches. A cardiovascular workout. To Big George. Bilateral. So, we've got 2 distinctive fighting styles. One is death by 1,000 cuts, if you will, as all those different punches from Ali, versus, as Bruce Lee used to say, he fears not the man who's practiced 10,000 kicks once, but he fears the man who practiced one kick 10,000 times. So George knows that body punch, which turns into a head punch, big trouble. Just want to recall for you too, guys, that bag he's hitting is a 100-pound punching bag. We have one in the fitness centre, and I can tell you I can sit there all day with a baseball bat and I wouldn't put a dent in it. Maybe Ian was a very powerful man, but yeah. But putting a dent in that bag just shows you how strong it was. story goes too, legend has it, that when they were training for the fight, they had open training quarters and they had turns to use the gym. Ali would walk past where Foreman was training, hitting the bag like that, and would purposely look the other way because he didn't want to see the possibility of him hitting into Rib's body. He wanted to avert his gaze and not think about that. So the stage is set for the rumble in the jungle. I'll just give you a couple of little things here, guys. This time, remember George blocks outside of his body. Okay, he's blocking out there. Ali and his camp are very confident that he'll be too quick and that he'll be susceptible to what they call feints. Over the top. Okay, he's feinting him out and moving around. What he would also do is what he also did when they were sparring, which was very unusual, he was landing straight rights at George, landing on like he is in that photo, boom. That's very hard to do. That's very, very upsetting to George because he hasn't had anyone do that to him. Thank you, George. Right. What he also does, we'll stand up again actually. What he also does is later on in the fight, after the first round, what happens is he's doing that. George is also effectively cutting off the ring. Muhammad Ali is not, he's 10 years older now, he's not as young as he was when he fought Sonny Liston. So George is cutting off the ring, he's right on top of him. He knows how to move. End of the round, Ali stands in his corner, and he gets described by Norman Baylor, the famous writer. He has a look of fear on his face. What am I going to do? This is not going to work, I'm not going to be able to do this for 15 rounds. This guy's too young, too strong. I've got to do something different. So what he did is exactly what you're not supposed to do. He lay on the ropes and let George wail away at him. And he moved with the ropes. He had such good coordination, vision, and so forth. Even when George was hitting him, he'd stop him and say, "George, you're a sissy. You're just not good enough. That's not even hard, George." So he'd get him more angry. And as time went on, doing that, he would also clench and pull down on George's neck. Oh, like that. You've still got a 220-pound guy pulling down on your neck. So George is getting fatigued. Thank you, George. Got the name right. So everyone knows he's worked on the punching bag. The punching bag eventually wins, right? He gets tired out. That punching bag is talking trash to you, pulling down on your head, and hitting your back as well. You're in for trouble. So this is what happened in the rumble in the jungle. Some highlights. I don't think I've got sound here, but that's okay. That's the stare down before the fight. As I say, I think Foreman's a bit taller. As you see, first round, he's moving around him, hitting him with rights. Boom, boom. It's a rough fight. See, George is effectively cutting off the ring. So the second round, Ali lets him get him on the ropes. And you can see he's trash talking there. And every now and again, he comes out with a beautiful right hand just to show him who's boss. See, talking to his ear there. Pull down on his neck. George is still hitting his body. It doesn't matter. You get hit by that. So George is getting in his licks as well.